Hello. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak to this first Pakistan conference for animals. I really appreciate the opportunity. My name's Mark Randell. I'm a retired senior detective who specialises now in crimes against animals. The safest communities for people are those within which animals are protected. Now, my background, I spent 30 years in the UK police, partly on uniform patrol, but also as a detective, retiring as a senior detective about 14 years ago. My specialisms were within criminal motivation, particularly about serious crime and terrorism offences. Also heavily involved in international collaboration. But for the last 14 years, I've been working specifically on crimes against animals and how they intersect with crimes against people. So some examples, I've done a lot of investigation work into dogfighting for media organisations such as the BBC, Vice News and other media. I train police officers, prosecutors and animal groups around the world. I've carried out covert investigations on a number of animal type offences such as the primate trade, puppy smuggling and wildlife crime. I've also done a fair amount of political work in the EU, in the UK and Ukraine and Greek governments as well. But what I'm going to talk about very, very briefly today is how animal cruelty rarely happens in isolation of other types of crime, how it links to terrorism, how it links to homicide, the connection between child sexual abuse and animal sexual abuse, how organised crime is linked to organised animal abuse, and also talking about violence against women and girls, specifically domestic abuse. Two cases I'm going to briefly talk about in relation to terrorism, one of which is based in New Jersey, where a man by the name of Gregory Lepsky stabbed the family dog. The police officers that attended the crime scene worked it properly and asked the question, why had he done this? And they uncovered that he'd been radicalized online and was planning to build a pressure cooker bomb to explode in New York City. Because of a diligent investigation, they prevented that happening. In the UK, there was an intelligence-led investigation looking at a right-wing extremist group. Now, most of that group were convicted for terrorism and firearms offences. However, one was in possession of 900 indecent images of children and 200 indecent images of animals. What it shows is that if you investigate terrorism and you find animal sexual abuse, if you investigate animal sexual abuse, you may well find terrorism. A lot of people know about the link between animal abuse and serial killing. It's broadcast on programs such as Mindhunter on Netflix and Dharma, two recent examples. But it happens all around the world. It doesn't just happen in the US. There's a case here in Dnipro in Ukraine where these three young men targeted street animals. They targeted street animals because no one would miss them. They killed them, they recorded them, they tortured them, and they then transferred that using the same modus operandi to either kill or attempt to kill all these individuals on the left-hand side of this slide. 21 murders and 8 attempted murders potentially could have been prevented if we took animal abuse more seriously, or we understood it was happening. Animal abuse isn't just minor crime, it's a warning signal for broader societal violence. Now, stray animals, as I've mentioned, because of their anonymity, provide a very good resource pool for dangerous individuals within our communities who may be inclined towards making the transition from harming animals to harming people. There are some within law enforcement, within prosecution agencies, and within politics that argue why focus on animals when there's so many other things to do. Now, all animals, including stray animals, are parts of our community, and evidence shows that when they're protected, people who are currently being abused in secret can also be protected. I did an investigation in the UK looking at just over 1,000 cases linked to online child sexual abuse, and 73% of those also contained animal sexual abuse. I'm going to briefly cover some organised crime, and I'm going to talk here about dogfighting. It's the most obvious type of organised animal abuse. I've done about 10 years investigations now into dogfighting. One specific case that we looked at, based in Bulgaria, and there's been about 150 arrests for other types of crime since we started in the UK, Greece, and Bulgaria. They've recovered drugs, they've recovered guns and cash, and detected a fair amount of serious crime too. And police officers are quite corrupt. Police officers are quite often involved in this organised crime. So if you look at dogfighting, you will uncover serious and organised crime undoubtedly. Domestic abuse happens in every single country. It's a huge problem in every single country. There's a lot more understanding now about what constitutes abuse. The UK, the definition has changed recently. It now not only covers physical or sexual abuse, violent or threatening behaviour, but also controlling or coercive behaviour, psychological abuse, economic abuse. So it covers a lot more exerting pressure on the survivor. 20% of all recorded crime in the UK is violence against women and girls, and it affects 2.4 million adults a year out of a population of 66 million. And 242 lives are lost a year at a cost of £78 billion. It affects everybody. Now, coercive control, psychological abuse, is the aspect of domestic abuse which is most likely to lead to domestic homicide. So it's really important to understand how we can start to tackle coercive control. A study in the UK looked at where perpetrators bring animals into the home as gifts to participants or to children, and then use those to later abuse either the survivor, the partner, or the child. And that happened in 94% of households. Of course they do. Criminals and abusers think ahead, they plan ahead. They want to create that animal-human bond so that they can use it for what they want to achieve. And 75% of abused women who have a companion animal reported a history of that animal being threatened or harmed by the intimate partner. And children were present and witnessed the violence in over 90% of those occasions. And we know what happens when children witness abuse. General Comment 26 from the United Nations Rights of the Child highlighted that. 9 in 10 professionals working in the domestic abuse sector have seen cases where pets have also been abused. Now, it can be that the first touch point between a victim, a survivor of domestic abuse, with the authorities can be where an animal, pet, is threatened, harmed, or killed within that. And so there's been a directive in the EU Parliament this year, or actually end of last year, on combating violence against women and domestic violence, saying that all member states of the EU must transpose the link between animal abuse and domestic abuse into national law by 2027. So they need to acknowledge it. They need to strengthen coordination and cooperation is critically important in keeping society safe between law enforcement, veterinarians, and social workers, and promote informative awareness campaigns on domestic violence, including companion animals. And because of this opportunity to speak to you today, this is a step forward, and I really do appreciate it. If you either use this link or go to the naturewatch.org website, there is a 9-point plan that I've created with a retired police officer from Canada, and it's a step-by-step guide on how you can protect animals and protect people together. So if you just go into our search engine in the naturewatch.org website, you can find that and work through that. It talks about policy and strategy and training processes. I also want to briefly talk about World Animal Day, October the 4th. You're probably aware of that. Naturewatch Foundation coordinates that every year. If you go to the worldanimalday.org website, you'll see who the Pakistan ambassadors are, and it'd be great to involve as many people as we can on October the 4th to show for that one day how much animals matter. Desmond Tutu said, there comes a point where we need to stop pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. And understanding how animal abuse and human abuse connects allows us to do that. We get an opportunity to prevent people being harmed in the first place. And that has a huge impact on society. It releases policing resource. It releases the court's time. It makes society safer, which is exactly what we're looking to try and do with this campaign. Thank you so much for today. Bit of a whistle-stop tour. My email address is there. Please contact me if you do have any questions. Thank you.